the first half of the 20th century, travel by tram was part of life for the people of Sydney and Newcastle. When you travelled to school, you went by tram. When you travelled to work, you went by tram. When you travelled to the beach, to the races, to the Easter show, you went by tram. With 180 miles of route and a fleet of 1,400 trams, Sydney had the second largest tramway system in the British Empire. The trams of Sydney and Newcastle provided a frequent and dependable service, and by the standards of the day, quite fast. Express trips introduced a vivid expression to our language, shooting through like a Bondi tram. Come with us now on a nostalgic journey as we relive the memories of the great days of trams in Sydney and Newcastle and look briefly at the recent return of trams to Sydney. Sydney's first tram was this horse tram, which ran in Pitt Street from 1861 to 1866. Steam trams came to Sydney in 1879, marking the beginning of the permanent network. The first trailer cars were double-deckers like this replica. Cable trams started in 1886, running from Milsons Point to Ridge Street, North Sydney, and later from the city to Edgecliff. Electric trams were used experimentally between Waverley and Randwick in 1890, followed by permanent installations in the 1890s between North Sydney and Mossman and from Edgecliff to Rose Bay. Electric trams began to flourish with the opening of the line along George Street in 1899. The overhead wiring was supported by ornamental poles in the centre of the roadway. The tramway department had two experimental double-deck electric trams, and in 1907 this film was taken from the front of one of these trams travelling southwards along George Street. Watch the daredevil cyclist at lower left. Approaching King Street, a tram can be glimpsed crossing on the Watsons Bay line, recently converted from cable operation. The centre poles were removed from George Street in 1908. Ahead on the right is the Queen Victoria building. Rapid growth in traffic led to extension of the electric tramway system to other streets. This is Pitt Street, also taken in 1907. The film Sydney's Wonderful Tramway System was made in the 1920s when Sydney's trams were at the height of their popularity. Ferries crowd the wharves at Circular Quay, and passengers in their hundreds swarm across the road to board trams for the ride uptown. At left, a tram departs Young Street on an Elizabeth Street run. At top left, a tram swings out of Loftus Street, ready to begin the journey up Pitt Street. In the centre, trams are heading along tracks which lead to George Street. Much of this film is believed to have been taken at Easter 1926. Very intensive services were provided from Railways Square and from Circular Quay to the showground for the Royal Easter Show and to Randwick Racecourse. Virtually every type of tram then in use in Sydney can be seen in this film. At left, ladies in frilly dresses climb aboard a coupled set of O-class trams. A pair of P-class cars, Sydney's last and finest toast-rack trams, which were being delivered when this film was made. The waiting shed in the centre of Railway Square, with signal box on top, has been preserved at the Tramway Museum at Loftus. Randwick Racecourse provided the busiest tramway traffic in Sydney. On race days in the 1920s, more than 400 trams were used to handle crowds to and from the racecourse. This huge fleet of trams was needed to clear crowds such as these after the last race. Trams moved through without stopping. It was a case of the quick and the left behind. The elaborate station at the racecourse had 6 platforms and was similar in scale to a substantial railway station. Trams were drawn from depots all over the network to operate these special services, and a number of streets in the Redfern and Moore Park areas had tracks laid especially for racecourse traffic. At the corner of Anzac Parade and Dacey Avenue, a succession of trams heads back from Randwick. Between the racecourse and Cleveland Street, a third track, visible here at bottom right, was provided on the western side of Anzac Parade. The Royal Easter Show provided another big job for the tramways. A pair of LP class trams arrives at the showground. The LPs were entering service in the 1920s as rebuilds of L-class cars. A coupled set of O-class cars unloads, followed by a coupled set of Ps. As at Randwick Racecourse, trams were lined up in large numbers in readiness for the return journey. Crowds leave the show to go home. The trams provided an efficient and quick way to reach Central Railway or the Quay. With the ability to handle crowds such as these, Sydney truly had a wonderful tramway system. By the 1920s, cars and buses were beginning to affect patronage on the trams, and traffic congestion was becoming a reality. Anzac Parade Junction at the intersection of Cleveland Street and Anzac Parade was the junction for the routes to Circular Quay and Railway Square. In addition, trams from the showground, cricket ground or sports ground joined Cleveland Street. As these pictures show, traffic conditions were at times chaotic. The traffic situation approaches gridlock. At Railway Square, an O-class tram turns into Quay Street, bound for the Ride line. These passengers have arrived from the showground or the racecourse and are changing to trams for the western suburbs. At the bottom of the picture, 2 paperboys notice the camera. A couple and their young family at lower left head for home after a day at the show. This is a demonstration of the features of the then new P-Class design. Concertina doors and drop windows were modern design features, allowing the tram to be fully enclosed in winter but open to the weather in summer. The ability to quickly re-rail a tram which had come off the tracks or to tow away one which had broken down was important when tram traffic was as busy as it was in the 1920s. First, the tram is lifted by the winch at the rear of the lifting wagon. Next, hydraulic jacks are used to lift the tram. The lifting wagon could also tow a tram in an emergency, although usually a defective car was towed by the nearest available tram or by a breakdown tram, of which there was generally one at every depot. In this demonstration, the tram is being hauled towards the gate of Randwick Workshops. Centennial Park is in the background. At the foot of this picture are trams at the McMahon's Point terminus, closed when the harbour bridge was opened. A few days before the opening of the bridge in March 1932, this tram made a trial crossing, climbing from Wynyard towards the tunnel portal. Originally intended for railway use, the tram tracks were on the eastern side of the bridge. Soon after this trial run, the bridge was opened with massive crowds and trams. Arrival of the first corridor tram in 1933, a major change from the footboard or toast rack design, prompted Movietone to make a survey of trams around Australia. A display for VIPs in Bridge Street Yard at the corner of Phillip Street. New trams on the line from Adelaide to Glenelg. Cable trams in Elizabeth Street, Melbourne. Most of the sound from these newsreels has been lost, but in a few moments we'll hear a fragment of recorded sound of cable trams at the corner of Burke and Spring Streets. Electric trams in Swanston Street. Brisbane, Edward Street. North Quay. Australia's last double-deck trams in Hobart. Perth. Sydney's last government-owned steam trams ran from Cogra to Sans Souci. This steam tram is being prepared for service at the depot at Sandringham on the shore of Botany Bay. The steam trams could mount a good turn of speed, hence the term shooting through. This tram is in the Princes Highway near Kogarah. Rocky Point Road. The steam trams are about to be replaced, and a well-wisher contributes a bunch of flowers. Rocky Point Road again, outbound nearing Sans Souci. A second track intended for electric trams but never used is on the left. Instead of being electrified, the Kogarah steam tram service was replaced by trolley buses in 1937. The last day of the steam trams was marked by large crowds and heavy loads. Leaving Kogarah, the trams took a run at the grade in Grey Street. Premier Stevens cuts the ribbon to inaugurate the trolley bus service. And passengers board for one of the first trips. Another new development in 1937 was the Silver City Comet, the first air-conditioned diesel train in New South Wales. It was filmed on a trial run from Sydney to Moss Vale. Sydney's very last steam tram ran from Parramatta to Redbank Wharf. The fragment that follows is the only known film of this historic line. A tram is seen in George Street near Gasworks Bridge. Owned by Sydney Ferries Limited, this line closed in 1943, and steam trams ended 64 years of service to the people of Sydney. The Second World War led to the first employment of conductresses, and the newsreel that follows shows them being trained in 1942. Note the blast protection and brownout features applied to the trams, windows partly boarded up and bumper bars painted white.
Tram conductresses go to school. To these girls, all is fares in love and war. So while the husband's away, the wife earns pay. To take on this job, these girls have got to learn a lot of this about a lot of that, with a lot of tests. The eyesight test to enable them to read at 20 feet. Don't spit, penalty £2. They practice at thumbing the threepences in case they give the correct change. And out to work they go. Officials are delighted with the rapid progress the girls have made. And now a piece of string, a little wheel, and a piece of wire. The idea is to pull the string so that the little wheel with the wire on it, with the string on the wheel, where the wire with the wheel under the string has the wire on it beside the little wheel, that's better. The wire is on the wheel. A few pointers on swinging the points by one who knows how and why, but not when. Look, girls, it's easy. You put the snop toggle into the Börsenfloch and hook it around the pushig. You pull on the millpiecen and nearly fall flat on your back platform. Here, look. Somebody else try. The hand that can thread the needle can also rock the instructor. It's as easy as dragging your husband over the doorstep on a Saturday night. And so they're on the job. Women trammies who work the same shifts and hours and earn the same wages as the men. Girls who can tell you in no uncertain manner just where you get out.
Now we'll look at each of the tram routes in turn. Most of the film that follows was taken in the 1950s, the last decade of tramway operation. Trams to Watson's Bay used King Street to reach their city terminus at Erskine Street Wharf. The building at Wright on the corner of George Street has changed little since cable trams passed it in the 1890s. Today it is occupied by Darrell Eat Chocolates and makes an attractive sight against the modern city skyline. The intersection of King and George Streets was the busiest in Sydney, with a tram crossing in peak hours every 8 seconds. King Street alone had 90 trams per hour in peak periods. At Queen Square, work is in hand for the cutting back of the line to this point, which took place in December 1950. The Queen of Earthly Queens gazes down, contemplating her forthcoming encirclement by a tramway loop. Trams for the Watson's Bay service were housed at Fort Macquarie and in this depot in New South Head Road, Rushcutters Bay. Although a toast rack breakdown tram can be glimpsed, all regular services on the Watson's Bay line were provided by corridor trams from as early as 1934. Travellers from the affluent suburbs on this route thus enjoyed a particularly comfortable service. These trams are R1 class corridor trams. They were a refinement of the earlier R class design, which had 2 centre doors on each side. An inbound tram approaches the latter day terminus at Queen Square. The curve on this loop was a 46 feet radius, the tightest on the Sydney tramway network. After passing St Mary's Cathedral, trams traversed Boomerang Street to reach William Street. At King's Cross, the line turned briefly into Darlinghurst Road and then into Bayswater Road. At Rose Bay. Climbing the hill from Rose Bay. In the background, the Flying Boat Base, which has followed the trams into history. Along the suburban streets of Vaucluse, with more glimpses of the harbour. And then begins the descent on single track to Watson's Bay. Trams ran down through Watson's Bay Park, past 2 loops, the first of which was Park Loop. Through the shady spot known as the Glen, and to another loop named Gap Loop after the gap nearby. Safety from collisions on single track lines such as this was assured by railway style staff and ticket working. At Gap Loop, the conductress obtains the staff authorising the tram to continue on its way. Watson's Bay terminus in Military Road. Let's watch another tram making the scenic descent through Watson's Bay Park, one of the outstandingly attractive tram rides in Sydney. The Watson's Bay line was one of the few lines in Sydney to be closed and then reopened. In December 1949, the section beyond Dover Road, Rose Bay, was closed, but public protest led to its reopening in the following May. In later years, the Transport Department adopted a policy of removing overhead wiring or paving over tracks within hours of tramway closures to prevent any resumption of service. Now, let's take a ride up the hill. Separate overhead wires were provided for trams in each direction, and check rails provided added security from derailments on this sharply curved line. More work for the conductress, collecting the staff at Park Loop. As we approach the signal station at Vaucluse, another tram departs for the city. At the beginning of the double track, we pass an outbound service. The crossover at Williams Street Double Bay was the terminus for many trams which did not make the full trip to Watson's Bay. Extra trams also ran from the city to Rose Bay and to other intermediate points, providing a very intensive service on the inner section of the route. Inbound at King's Cross, trams passing at the top of William Street. The evening peak hour in William Street seems no less busy in 1960 than it is today. The neon advertising signs, which were once a feature of William Street, provide a backdrop to these trams at dusk. Trams on the Elizabeth Street routes reached Circular Quay via Phillip Street, turned briefly into Bridge Street, then into Young Street. Departing from Circular Quay, trams turned into Alfred Street, which they traversed for a short distance before reaching the foot of Phillip Street. The grade in Phillip Street was steep, and trams had a slow climb as far as Bridge Street. Reverse curves took trams from Phillip Street into Hunter Street and then into Elizabeth Street. Trams round the Hunter Street curves, seen from the roof of what was then Qantas House. Phillip Street at this point was realigned in 1960. An inbound tram approaching Hunter Street. Crossing Martin Place. An outbound tram approaching Market Street. Elizabeth Street has many moods, and the trams were part of all of them. Trams for Bondi via Bellevue Hill turned out of Elizabeth Street at Park Street. Like many others, the junction was controlled by an elevated signal box. After passing the Australian Museum, trams turned into Yurong Street, then into Stanley Street, and into Burke Street. Barkham Avenue Viaduct near St Vincent's Hospital enabled trams to cross a low-lying section of ground on a bridge constructed for their sole use. After the tram line closed in 1959, the viaduct was converted to a roadway. Travel across the viaduct offered tram passengers a close-up view of Darlinghurst backyards. Further on, an inbound tram turns from Glenmore Road through reverse curves leading to MacDonald Street. The route to Bondi via Bellevue Hill took trams through the narrow streets of East Sydney and Paddington. Often there was little opportunity for motorists to pass a tram. In 1954, this route was cut back to Ocean Street, Wallara. The next scene shows preparations for the new terminal arrangements. Edgecliff Road, Grosvenor Street crossover, turning into Old South Head Road. At Bellevue Hill, descending Birriga Road. The poor condition of the tracks was the official reason for early closure of this line. Turning into and out of Campbell Parade, Bondi. An inbound tram and bus in Birriga Road nearing the top of Bellevue Hill. Approaching Ocean Street inbound. A view at the same location in 1959 shows the tram tracks removed and a tram swinging into the truncated terminus. This particular tram continues up Ocean Street towards Waverley Depot, and intending passengers for the city are disappointed. Trams for Bondi via Bondi Junction turned out of Elizabeth Street into Liverpool Street. The signal box from this spot is preserved at the Tramway Museum at Loftus. Trams from Railway Square to Bondi also reach Liverpool Street at this intersection. From Liverpool Street, trams ran up Oxford Street to Taylor Square. The points for the junction leading to Crown Street. From the corner of Moore Park Road, the tracks were located in a reservation in the centre of Oxford Street, providing an opportunity for some very fast running. In later days, the track was not always well maintained, providing at times a bouncy ride. The trams which ran to Bondi and Bronte were housed at Waverley Depot at the corner of Oxford Street and York Road. Trams leave the depot to take up running for the afternoon peak hour. When tram services to Bondi and Bronte ceased, this depot was converted for use by buses. P-class trams did not predominate on the Bondi and Bronte lines until after 1957. In earlier years, O-class trams provided most of the services on these routes, supplemented by corridor cars. Bondi Junction, in the heart of the district, which took its name from the tramway junction, and which has retained that name long after the trams have gone. This tram is heading towards Bondi on track relaid in concrete for the Royal Tour in 1954, only a few years before abandonment. Wherever the Queen was scheduled to travel during that tour, tram tracks were relaid in concrete. Further on, trams used reserved tracks to reach sea level. This is the descent from Fletcher Street. An inbound tram climbs from beneath the Bondi Road overbridge. On a wet day, this outbound tram is about to strike a spot of trouble. Its trolley pole dewires. The conductor puts the pole back on the wire and then the tram proceeds. Now we make this descent without incident. And reach sea level at Campbell Parade, where the trams ran in a central reservation. This tram is about to reach the remains of the former Bellevue Hill Line junction seen a few moments ago. The line from Curlewis Street to North Bondi was used by trams from the city via both Bellevue Hill and Bondi Junction. Opened in 1929, the North Bondi extension was the last major addition to the Sydney tramway network. North Bondi terminus had 3 tracks, which after 1946 were laid on the level in an excavation in the hillside. When this film was taken shortly before the end of tram services, the excavation had been partly filled in preparation for later use by buses. The 3 tracks allowed departures for 3 destinations: Circular Quay via Bellevue Hill, Circular Quay via Bondi Junction, and Central Railway. An inbound tram leaves Campbell Parade to start the climb towards the city. A tram turns at Bondi Junction onto the Bronte line. The descent to Bronte was perhaps the most spectacular of all the beach routes. Trams descended through a rock cutting and emerged high above the beach. They continued on reserve track to the terminus, which was separate from road traffic. An inbound tram leaves Bronte for Railway Square. This tramway route is now used for parking and as a roadway. Trams pass in the cutting above Bronte. The large advertising signs on these P-class trams were a comparatively recent innovation dating from 1952. We leave the Bronte line with more views of trams climbing from the beach and through the rocky cutting. The Waverley Extension line ran from McPherson Street Junction at the corner of Albion and McPherson Streets in Waverley to this junction with the Coogee line at Peters Corner, Randwick. A Coogee-bound tram heads down Albion Street from McPherson Street. A tram crosses on the Clovelly line. The Waverley Extension line was single track and was the first route to be converted from steam to electric traction in 1890. Cook Street, Randwick. Footboard cars on the Coogee line and a Waverley-bound corridor tram. Cowper Street. Frenchman's Road. passing a baker's cart in Albion Street. McPherson Street Junction looking towards Bondi Junction. The routes to Clovelly, Coogee, Maroubra and La Perouse were marked by extensive off-street operation on ballasted track. From Taylor Square, trams on these routes used Flinders Street to reach Anzac Parade at its commencement at the corner of Moore Park Road. Anzac Parade was perhaps Sydney's most important tramway thoroughfare. Trams between Circular Quay and southeastern destinations pass alongside Moore Park. The showground is to the left. The numerous extra tracks for showground traffic were mostly disused by the time this film was taken in 1960. Anzac Parade Junction at the corner of Cleveland Street, more peaceful than in the 1920s, with trams to and from Circular Quay and a tram arriving from Central Railway. Kensington Junction, near the intersection of Robertson Road and Anzac Parade, had a ground-level signal box. Here, trams turned off to Coogee and Clovelly from the main line to La Perouse. This junction and its signalling arrangements were more like a railway than a tramway. Trams to Coogee and Clovelly ran alongside Allison Road and adjacent to Centennial Park. This attractive stretch of line also provided some very fast running. Near Randwick Racecourse, a siding and a long platform were provided, used in earlier years for first-class race specials. The platform and siding, to the right of this picture, remained usable to the last days of tramway operation. Now we are approaching Darley Road, where the Clovelly line diverted to the left. In this view, a special tour tram is arriving at Clovelly Terminus. Trams to Coogee continued along King Street from Darley Road. Randwick Tramway workshops are on the left, and we will visit them later. The climb from the workshops on ballasted track took trams to Peter's Corner. And then along Belmore and Perouse roads. The descent to Coogee involved two lengthy stretches of off-street operation with some attractive water views. Turning into Car Street, next stop for Wiley's Baths. This stretch of track is now a roadway. Street running was resumed in Arden Street, which incorporated another short stretch of open ballast track. Approaching the terminus, the conductor sets the points to allow the tram to reach the correct track. Departure from Coogee took trams through Parkland before Arden Street was rejoined. A puddle after rain could make the ride more interesting. This park had been reclaimed from a swamp, filled in when the tram line was built, which perhaps explains the drainage problem. An inbound tram passes under Brook Street. Carr Street in late afternoon sunshine. Restrictions such as this were honoured more in the breach than in the observance. Fast running alongside Centennial Park, and one of the few super elevated or banked curves on the tramway network sees us return to Kensington Junction. The La Perouse line was the second longest line in Sydney, extending some 10 miles from Circular Quay to the terminus. The only longer line was that to Ryde, which was almost 11 miles in length. For most of the line's existence, toast rack trams predominated as they did on many routes, but much of the film that follows was taken in later years when corridor trams provided all services. East of Dacey Avenue, a third track was provided for trams returning from Randwick Racecourse. In Kensington, trams ran between flower beds. Passing the University of New South Wales. Daceyville Junction at the corner of Gardeners Road. From Daceyville, trams to La Perouse ran wholly on open ballast track for the remainder of their journey. At Maroubra Junction, the line to Maroubra Beach diverged. This was one of Sydney's more recent tram lines, having been opened in 1921. Turning from Maroubra Road into Cooper Street. Reserve track alongside French Street and Mons Avenue. Red roofs and ocean views, classic Sydney scenery. Beachgoers relax while a tram makes its way around the large loop, which circled several streets and provided the terminal facilities at Maroubra. A departure for Circular Quay. Trams passing near Maroubra, close to the point at which the tracks separated to form the terminal loop. Climbing from Maroubra, some children jump from a moving tram, and one of them makes a bumpy landing. An inbound tram resumes street running at Cooper Street. Back on the La Perouse line, we are approaching Malabar crossover alongside Long Bay Jail. Until 1950, this siding allowed the prison tram to run into the jail, carrying its hapless passengers to and from the courts at Darlinghurst. An inbound tram departs Malabar crossover for the city. Trams were very effective at flattening pennies put on the line by small boys. The outer stretches of the La Perouse line were marked by sandy, almost desolate scenery, sometimes devoid of signs of habitation. Approaching Little Bay, the tramway department was responsible for maintaining the road pavement between the tram tracks, a task which required a fleet of steamrollers. The afternoon sun at Little Bay catches an inbound tram in the sandhills. Resuming our journey to La Perouse, we pass an inbound tram at Little Bay. Until 1935, an extension of the Matraville line formed a second route to La Perouse. This is Yarra Junction, where the two lines converged about a mile short of the terminus and where the remains of the point work were still visible until the end of tramway operation. Arriving at La Perouse, where a double-tracked balloon loop and a siding provided extensive terminal facilities. An inbound tram departs from La Perouse for the city. As we saw in the busy scenes from the 1920s, Railway Square was a major city terminus. We'll take a trip from Railway Square to Anzac Parade Junction. This inbound tram is approaching Railway Square in Pitt Street. Arriving at the terminal loop, the driver resets the destination sign for Maroubra Beach. And the conductor makes a nimble exit. An outbound tram swings from the terminal loop into Railway Square. And approaches the waiting shed in the centre of the square. Leaving Railway Square, trams for the eastern suburbs ran down Pitt Street and into Eddy Avenue. Then, as now, the handsome colonnaded facade of Central Station provided the backdrop to Eddy Avenue, which had a third track for special workings such as racecourse and show traffic. At the eastern end of Eddy Avenue, trams passed beneath the railway tracks and beneath the bridge which carried trams, leaving the colonnade for Circular Quay. A signal box controlled the junctions leading into Elizabeth Street. This is the view from the signal box of trams to and from southeastern suburbs. Trams for Bondi and Bronte turned north into Elizabeth Street, which they followed as far as Liverpool Street. An inbound tram to the railway from Bondi. Inbound and outbound trams in Randall Street on tracks built when Chalmers Street alongside Central Railway was closed for construction of the eastern suburbs' underground railway platforms. Inbound in Chalmers Street, nearing Randall Street. Chalmers Street approaching Cleveland Street. Cleveland Street near Dowling Street. Anzac Parade Junction, with passengers boarding a tram for the railway. An outbound tram at Anzac Parade Junction, joining the route from Circular Quay. The trams which served the southeastern lines were housed at Dowling Street Depot on the corner of Dowling Street and Dacey Avenue. The West Kensington line passed this depot, but there was also a network of connecting lines in Waterloo and Redfern for depot and racecourse workings. Bound from the depot for the Botany line, this tram is in Phillip Street, Waterloo. And in Elizabeth Street on part of the Rosebery line. Dowling Street Depot was the largest tram depot in Australia. It had 27 tracks, and in its heyday it housed more than 340 trams. It was the last depot to remain in use in Sydney, but by the time these pictures were taken, fewer than 100 trams were in service, all of the corridor type. Turning into Dacey Avenue to take up running on the La Perouse or Coogee line. A shuttle service carried crews to and from Kensington Junction. A tram on this service, known as the Limerick, swings onto the third track on the western side of Anzac Parade and is briefly delayed by a dewirement. Trams on the West Kensington line in Dowling Street alongside the depot, visible at right. A tour tram on the West Kensington line in Todman Avenue. Inbound in the same street. The Daceyville line was operated as a branch from the Botany line running along Gardeners Road to the Daceyville terminus at Anzac Parade. Passengers board an inbound tram at Daceyville in the morning peak hour.